Thank you, Sandy, and thank you, everyone. To Minister, my mayoral and councillor colleagues, thank you very much for being here. I make this my few remarks now on behalf of my colleagues, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Gus Bullitt and Councillor Peter Harrell, who've come with us today and been on this journey with us. What I want to focus on about is what we've done over the last 3 years through this program. Everything I'm going to go through now relates directly in as an outcome of us being part of the Future Cities Collaborative. We would not have been able to do any of this if it wasn't for being part of the collaborative and working with the US Study Centre. And I don't say that lightly. The challenge that we had, we got elected, we went on the promise, we want to change the city, we want to change things, make it better. How do you do that? Had no idea, right? That's the reality. How do you make an area better? How do you give people what they want? So we signed up to the US Study Centre as part of the program. I think one of the challenges that we have is, we're limited in the knowledge that we actually have as policymakers. What do we know about placemaking, about urban revitalization, all these sorts of things, when it's not necessarily our trade or craft. So we go back to if we go to the first meeting that we had at Sydney University, where we all sat around a table. One of the great things about this as well, it wasn't just Liverpool Council sitting with some professors and uni students around the table. Rather, it was about other councils sitting around the table and looking at each other's city and providing critique and ideas. So we started off, I think we had on our table, it was Liverpool, Blacktown, and Parramatta. So what we did from there is we identified our key precincts that we need to work on. Some of them public, some of them private. One is the Macquarie Street Mall. Another one was the Warren site, which is a 10,000 square metre block of land under private ownership, connecting the two biggest employment areas, being your hospital with 6,000 employees and Westfields, where at the moment is sitting a rundown fruit shop, Peter Warren service centre and a thrifty car rental, and linking right across the road from Big Park, which is a great space of amenity in front of the hospital. We also then looked at the river and how do we sit here and re-engage with this river, the same problem that many cities have had over the years of saying that who have been cut off by the rivers through train lines and inaccessibility. How do we get back and engage and provide that amenity to our community? We also then went down to about an Eat Street, saying if we are going to be a city and have these buildings that are going up to 100 metres and have this high density, well, what amenity is there? Our city's active during the day, but at night time, nothing happens. So we identified those precincts. The next question is, well, what do we do? How do we fund it? And what's the best mechanism? So council formed the Building Our New City Committee, or BONC, as it's called. A lot of population growth in Liverpool. Anyway, so we formed this committee and we gave it delegations. We gave it delegations to go there and make decisions on design, so we didn't have to go to council every single time to do this. So one of the things that we were very lucky is we were able to engage Professor Blakely as the special advisor to the mayor. I think is what your official title is, Ed. So thank you. It's great. And it's been really good because what happened is when we started off, in all due respect to our planners, but they had their points of view, and it was always hard to argue that, saying, well, here's a professional saying this house should be done. Here am I, I've got no idea, and I'm trying to argue a different point. But every time what we would do is we'd say, Professor Blakely said, and Professor Blakely said, and they gave up. So, we formed this committee and we said, okay, great. Well, we need money. How do we fund the works that we need to do? We're very lucky that council has a town improvement fund, which essentially is a levy on commercial property owners, which raises $1.6 million a year. We look back to the record, it's been in place since the 40s. So that's the earliest we could find a record of it. So what we said is, rather than just take this money and do some paving year by year, we said, let's forward fund a whole bunch of capital works. So we basically put together a $17 million package saying, well, this is how much money we have. And we're going to basically commit that $1.6 million for the next 10 years. We had a bit of Section 94 money as well. We were able to work with the state, and we applied for the LERS funding, the Local Infrastructure Renewal Scheme, which basically means we're now doing it at interest-free, effectively. So we've got the 17 million program, and the whole thing is about accelerating the work. And I use this analogy, and I'm sorry if you've heard it before, but we want to go from being a caterpillar to a butterfly, a transformative change in a short period of time, because we have to deal with the perception issue that we have. So that's how we worked out how we're going to do what we're going to do and how we're going to fund it. Now, so if I can give you, I guess, a bit of the outcomes where we are 3 years later. The mall tender was approved at the last council meeting Wednesday week, with work to start on September 3rd. That's a $12 million investment by council on taking what is a good mall that works great during the day and just needs to be able to be revitalized at nighttime. Urbis did the design for us. The great thing about that is now we've been able to encourage and capture some investment from that, because on one end of the mall, Bryden's law firm, which is based in Liverpool, has just had their DA approved. They're building a premium grade office space in Western Sydney, 8-story building, as their headquarters. They're not building that as property developers, but they're doing this because they want a headquarters, they want their name on it, and also not building A grade, but premium grade space. And they were encouraged because we're doing this mall. They couldn't do that if we were to have an old rundown mall in front of it. On the other end of the mall, Abacus, which owns the Liverpool Plaza, has submitted a rezoning application, which went through council as well, which will be going to the department very shortly, about rezoning their site and to put residential and 27-story building with retail, service departments, and residential units on top of that. So that's another great outcome for us. Big Park, that program, the design is being done as well by Urbis, with the aim to work for the work to start in February, with the tender going out soon. Now, in doing that, we sat there and said, well, what can we do in the short term? Because that's obviously, these things take a lot of time to design and so on. We had an old shed, an old brick shed, which had all our maintenance equipment in it. We took all that out there. We put a pop-up cafe in there, and now when you go there, it's changed the whole atmosphere. Something that cost council nothing has now changed the way that whole park operates and who's there and what's going on. It's a great outcome. So it's not always about the big money, but once it gets down to this concept, which we've now learned about, is about placemaking. The River Precinct, at the moment we've had a developer who's now gone out there, invested on buying some land along the river, land that's been rezoned residential for a very long time, but no one had the vision. And this is an important thing. No one had the vision to be able to see what opportunities actually exist. So they brought one of the best teams of consultants, definitely the best team of consultants that Liverpool Council's ever seen, Woods Baggett, Dominic Alvaro, Aspect, and a whole bunch of other different people who've actually gone out there and designed the paper mill, which is a development in one of Australia's oldest paper mill buildings, right along the river, that is all about capturing what's happening on there along the water. 200 units, already sold out. They don't have the DA yet. It's going to JRPP soon, but they've sold it out. And then they went and bought another block of land nearby called the Binary. They sold 170 units last month in one day. Now, the interesting, everyone thinks, oh, people, this is overseas money. 70% of the people who bought in there are from the Liverpool LGA. 85% are owner-occupiers. It's showing that people want to live in good places. We're meeting them with them on Tuesday because they've got their placemakers coming along, because that's what they're interested. They want to lift the whole precinct. They had a development that was just awarded their Solace project, which is awarded one of the best residential developments in Sydney only a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if it was UDIA or Urban Task Force who gave them that award. But it's great that they've actually captured this vision, and they're encouraged by what's going on. Now, with that, also as part of that project, we're going to be using it through a VPA, getting them to fund the upgrades along the river and the park as well. The biggest thing that's probably happening now is what happens across the river in the, let's say, the East Liverpool precinct, where there's 50 hectares of land under 3 ownerships. Which now, one of them is owned by Goodmans. Goodmans is lodging a planning proposal with us very shortly, in the next couple of weeks, about potentially putting 10 to 12,000 dwellings along that site. We're talking about an area that's, probably 150 meters from the train station. Beautiful, fantastic amenity that we haven't been able to utilize before. Then there's the Pirelli site, which is across the river, and then we have another one. We have a planning proposal that's currently in front of us for the Bridges Road precinct, which is 90,000 square meters of land, right along the river, right along a lake that had an approval for industrial warehousing on it. So and they're proposing to build bridges as part of their VPAs connecting onto the train station, and how do we get those two parts working. So it's great that we've identified this precinct, and some of this we're getting the developers to go and fund it. We have under construction now 29-story residential building, Sky House, 428 units. under construction as we speak, and that will send a big sign out there where at the moment everything is 8 stories in Liverpool, this will be 29 stories. And it just shows what can actually happen and change perception of us being a city. They're so encouraged that they want to put a planning proposal to put another 10 stories on top of this, but they want to test a new model about actually in those 10 stories on top of that, about building large-scale apartments. So not the typical 2-bedroom, 85 square meters, but going to the 100, 120 square meters. So they want to go from being sky house to sky home. And they wonder with the way the property market is changing, whether that's people now take that up as an option and say, we want to live in these big spaces with these amazing and fantastic views. Our Eat Street, we had 3 cafes when we started. Now we have 9 operating. We've also looked at how can we fix the area. We had a ring road, which we bought, which we now have realigned, or we've bought the land to allow it to realign. We've then, in part of doing that, we're going to have a car park that's going there. So we're about to settle on that property in the next couple of weeks. Council's also identified a new term that we learned as part of this process. Council has a huddle grid, which urban designers tells us is really good, but it never really worked properly because of the southern end. The northern end was dominated by Westfields, and the southern end didn't have any activity there. So Council is doing an EOI to move its council building on that end as an anchor to that area. We've also gone along and put a rezoning application. We worked very closely not only with Professor Blakely, but also Professor Rod Simpson, who's helped us develop a new LEP, which is great when I went to the Department of Planning, because before they said anything to us, said, let's have a chat about this first. Basically, we're removing our commercial core, that's our intention, and to create a mixed-use precinct. And it's great that we've been working with the department on that, and to change that mentality, you know, to create that activation. We look forward to see how that conversation goes in the future. So, Minister, we're... hint, hint. No, so, getting close. Okay. Done? Yes. We've got the night markets going on, Wi-Fi, CCTV, which we installed. We're looking at redoing our lighting in the city centre, our paving strategy. We've removed one-way streets and put two-way streets. We're focusing on placemaking. We've introduced a fast-track DA system, which can get you DAs for low-risk residential houses out in 10 days, DACC from council. We're looking at putting the city manager model. So look, there's great things that are happening, and all of this is because of this program. So I want to thank everyone involved. Sandy, everyone, thank you very much for your help with it. Cheers. I'm done. How many was that?